Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the report from Tiger Mountain. This is the first report we've done since the death of Charlie Kirk. So we're going to report on that solemn event tonight on the report from Tiger Mountain. Please stick around and listen. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to talk about the tragic death of Charlie Kirk. I'm sure half the world knows exactly what happened. Well, not exactly the official story, but or maybe exactly what happened, but they know that he died and that he was murdered in a terrible way by, let's just say dark forces, ladies and gentlemen. That's who he was murdered by, whether you believe the official story, that he was murdered by some transgender widow. He was really dating a transgender person called Twigs, ladies and gentlemen, Twigs. And, whether you believe that, or there's the deeper conspiracy story that it was Israel, which we'll get into a little bit further. But, Charlie Kirk was, how will we put it? He was one of the nice guys, ladies and gentlemen. He was one of the nice people on the new right. He was one of the nice people from the MAGA movement, from the, this kind of, new politics that has been rising up to defend our nations, Western nations, in the last 10, 15 years. Obviously, he was involved in Turning Point USA, which was a major conservative voice connected to Trump's movement, connected to Republican Party interests. He started at very young. He started at a ridiculously young age, something like 18 or something like that. He began to get involved with politics. I think he had some left-wing kind of ideas originally, and then, from going to school and university, and then slowly he began to, go a bit more right-wing, and then eventually ended up in the MAGA camp. One of the things, I think that was very admirable about Charlie Kirk is that the way he would debate people. I must admit, from watching the way he debated people, I attempt to do that myself when I do get involved with debates. I don't debate too many people who are of the exact opposite opinion to me, but I'd be more than happy to. So if any of you ever want to come on the show, I'll have you on. If any, radical, whoever, left-wingers want to come on and tell me I'm full of shit, I'd be more than happy to chat with them. I really liked the way, he was sort of respectful, and he would let them state their case, and, he would argue, and he was not particularly rude to people. Sometimes he would mock them. Generally, it was good-natured, but essentially he sort of gave people enough rope in a way. You see someone like Jordan Peterson does this, he would allow people to speak, he would be respectful, and then he'd destroy them, you know what I mean? Charlie Kirk did destroy many left-wing people because their ideas were so often ridiculous, but he often did it with a great deal of respect, humility, there was a sense of kindness to the guy. So, I think it's really a tragedy, what happened to him, and it's obviously a great loss, and you see so many people, are coming out. Obviously they had Charlie Sheen recently come out and mourn him. I had no idea Charlie Sheen was a fan of Charlie Kirk. You had people, all across the spectrum. You had even Stevie Nicks, who was often usually a left-winger. She lamented his death, and, many people, and it was good to see that, many people from the left did come out and say this was a great tragedy. But, of course, there were a few others who celebrated Charlie Kirk's death, and many of them got cancelled. So it's very interesting that because, cancel culture, we on the right have been copping cancel culture for a long time, but there are a number of people on the left, many of them just insignificant fuckwits, who got cancelled. And, while I didn't particularly wish that on anyone, because I don't believe in cancel culture. People want to celebrate it. Well, it's unpleasant. It's distasteful. I'd say fuck those people off from your Facebook feed or whatever. Fine, but I don't believe in destroying someone's life over a comment. I don't believe because that's what they've done to people on the right, and I just don't think if we're against it, we should be against it. But I don't lament that they were because they're a bunch of arseholes. Anyone who celebrated his death is obviously a piece of shit. I did have a couple of friends of my own. And I won't say who they are because, they are old friends. I have a few friends on my page from the nightclub scene who are of the left, form of politics. There were two in particular who kind of pretty much celebrated his death. And, my reaction, I left a comment just kind of essentially just kind of rolling my eyes or mocking. And, I have no desire to destroy these people's lives. And obviously they are tolerant enough to have been on my page, and they've never attacked me in public, these people. So This is the way things used to be. We used to tolerate each other's opinions and still get along. And I think that in many ways was what Charlie Kirk represented. The fact you could have difference of opinions and, and still get along and still have a discussion with people. I used to get invited to many dinner parties, and obviously I've had this kind of politics that I espouse here at the Report from Tiger Mountain. I've had it for many years. I've had it probably 30 years since probably when I was a young man, 22, 23, probably 35 years. I'm 56 now. So, I had it from a young age, and I've often espoused this kind of stuff at dinner parties, and I've been to many far-left dinner parties, and sometimes I know when to shut up because I don't want to rub people's nose in it, but sometimes they would want to engage me in discussion about ideas. And, I was always welcomed. And, they considered my politics to be obviously something they didn't like, but it was something that they tolerated. You know what I mean? They tolerated it. And it was only around the time that Donald Trump began to get popular and become president. That was when I noticed I stopped getting invited because they could see that what I had been talking about for many years had actually become popular. And popular enough that the most powerful man in the world was now espousing these similar kind of beliefs. So, that was interesting. And, I took the death of Charlie Kirk, very personally. There's a brilliant video online put out by, I think his name is Sam Hyde. He talks about how, Charlie Kirk is you, and then that was that woman, Alania, who got stabbed by the black guy. And he said, and Alania, that's your sister, that's your mother, that's your girlfriend, and that really resonated, because that is the situation when we are under attack for our beliefs. People are being arrested in the United Kingdom for their beliefs. It's fucking ridiculous. So the Charlie Kirk moment is it's a watershed. It's like a right wing assassination of Martin Luther King. It's like that. It's that important an event. And I think it's, made people stop and pause. Even people on the centre left have been quite sympathetic, and that is a good thing. So if you want to get into the actual, assassination, look, I've examined it fairly deeply. I would say it's, I guess what you would call 50-50. You can believe the official story that it was this, strange Tyler Robinson character, who was dating a transgender person called Twigs, and that he, just hated Charlie Kirk's rhetoric. He came from a kind of, vaguely conservative family, so he probably heard this shit at home and he didn't like it. So he got his old man's gun and went down the shop and got onto a roof and, and then he blew out his throat, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, that couldn't be more, speaks for itself, doesn't it? And, I'm going to do a report on Jimmy Kimmel as well, but we'll talk more about that in the other report I'm going to do on Kimmel. But and then there's the other theory, which essentially that Charlie Kirk was heading in the direction of Candace Owens and heading in the direction of Tucker Carlson. He was turning anti-Israel because, I think it's been hard for any right-winger to, we don't love the Palestinians on the right. We don't. But we just really are not big fans of murdering women and children. And they are just, they really are committing genocide over, in Gaza, and they're murdering women and children. They're bombing schools. They're bombing hospitals. These are places where, first of all, schools where children are, and then hospitals where, if you've ever been sick, imagine if the hospital blew up all around you. Just let that sink in. So, this is just shocking what's been going on. And, personally, I do believe there was a conspiracy involved with Charlie Kirk because there were some very strange things going on. There were people signaling. You've probably seen these. They do these weird signals, and some guy adjusts his hat and does something to his nose. Very strange. Unless that was some security thing that just happened to coincide. That's something maybe they do every half hour or something. I don't know. You need to look into it. But apparently he had Israeli security. And there's been some videos where he's got this weird thing on his chest, like an exploding pager, because the bullet appears to have hit him like this, and then it blew out sort of this side of his throat, and then the blood, that was unbelievable. So I've spoken to some of my conspiracy thinking friends. David Thrussell, said there's another shooter. There could well have been, and I don't know how they set this kind of thing up. They get on the roof. Maybe they allow the patsy to get on the roof with his gun, and then they shoot with their gun, and then once the gun's gone off, the patsy runs, and he's on the roof with the gun, so you know what I mean? I don't know how they do this or set this up, but I imagine, when you put the full power of the CIA and Mossad behind something, it's quite possible to do these kind of things. So that's it. So it's a terrible day for humanity, I think, the death of Charlie Kirk. And, I just want to, send out our love and support to his family and, Charlie Kirk's organisation, which I think will carry on as long as the Zionists don't take over. There were rumours of, Ben Shapiro taking over, and then I saw some video of Destiny, that absolutely horrid left-wing Zionist motherfucker, was doing similar things to Charlie Kirk, but people were just screaming at him about the Epstein files, so that's not going to take off. People aren't buying this bullshit on the left or right. So, big shout out to, Charlie Kirk's family and to all his supporters out there. And, also Turning Point Australia, run by Joel Jamal, who's been doing a great job of carrying on Charlie's legacy locally. So that's my report on Charlie Kirk's death, and thank you for listening.